Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at World of Pets podcast. We love having you here on a weekly basis. And we want our pets to live as long as possible, but we want that to be a good quality life. So, to that end, we on this podcast explore all things about pets and animals so that we can have them around for a long time, but they are living a quality life. So again, thank you for joining us. Take it away, hosts.
And welcome into World of Pets podcasts. And we are welcoming back repeat guests. I love these kinds of continuing episodes. Last week she was on. Her name is Sonya Shearer, and we talked about Hazel, the dog, and life before Hazel, life after meeting Hazel, and all the extra stuff that went along with that process. So welcome in Anthony, welcome in Sonya, and let's take it away.
Thank you. It's nice to be back. I appreciate being back here with you guys tonight.
Yeah,
it was
it's good to be back myself. I wasn't here last week. Yeah, I didn't get to be here last week, so it's good to be back myself.
We're glad to have you back.
Sonya, if you want to give a quick recap of what you guys talked about last week, and then we can get into some of the discussions for this week.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So what we talked about last night was a little bit of our journey with our first service dog, Hazel the Wonder dog. And some of the things that we talked about was what we call the quiet connection. And the quiet connection is literally that connection between service dog and their human. And there's a lot that goes into it. And I think a lot of people just assume that happens. And I think in many instances when you have, it's like having two people, like you get each other or you don't. Mm-hmm. And I think that resonates with animals as well. And our experience with Hazel was my husband literally walked in, sat down on the couch. Mima called Hazel in, and Hazel looked at my husband, jumped up on the couch, slid right under his arm, and that was it. I mean, they were eye to eye, nose to nose immediately. So there was that immediate connection, which was great. But then from that point forward, we then had to start working on and expanding that relationship through trust. And that trust is what made her such an amazingly wonderful service dog for the benefit of my husband. So we're going to talk a little bit about how that trust was built, some of the tools that we used through our training process. Some we did with a general obedience dog trainer. And then once we got past that, her basic obedience and her CGC, Canine Good Citizen, then we needed to make that jump into the training that we were going to do specifically for being a service dog. Because as we've talked about, in order to qualify as a service animal, that animal has to provide 3 specific things for the benefit of that human. 3 things that they will do for that person. And while people do get service dogs that are, I will say they are generally trained. I mean, they know what they need to do. As we know, some service dogs are trained by scent, for people with allergies and heart and emotional, all of those different types of things. Because of where we were in my husband's disease and Hazel's age, she was almost 4. We knew that we needed to jump right in and get her trained as quickly as possible to provide the services we needed for the benefit of my husband. So what we're going to talk about today is the method that we used, and it's called shaping.
Okay. So in layman's terms, for people like me that are laymen, define, I guess in plain language, define what you mean by shaping. And then if you could compare that to like compared to corrective-based training and command-heavy training?
So, for all intents and purposes, shaping training, or shaping, we'll call it, is you're rewarding all of the little steps along the way. So, we have a general idea and we start to train the dog what we want them to do from this point to this point. So, let's use an example. For us, the little electric pads that you see at like doctor's offices and hospitals and stuff for ADA, it's a sensor light. So what we knew, in order for her to be able to open the door, she doesn't know what a sensor light is. So we actually started with one of those little tap lights, the round tap lights,
Mhm.
and introduced it to her and said, okay, here's the light. And she was naturally curious. So for shaping, we're going to start introducing her to the light, clicking it, seeing the light flashing, hearing the noise, dropping it on the floor so she wasn't bothered by it. She's like, oh, okay, whatever. It's just a thing. And then you start working on getting her to do what you need her to do at that point. So when we talk about how it differs a little bit for correction-based training could be something as simple as taking the dog's nose and taking the light and tapping it and going, touch, touch, or whatever the command was, until the dog learned that that's what they needed to do. If we're looking at command-heavy training, it's kind of similar in that you get them to do it, but you're forcing the word, the command, touch. That's the point, and it's do this. What I enjoy about shaping is that it gets the animal to kind of look at, okay, what do you need me to do? They need to sort it out in their head. And then they can figure out how they are going to get from here to here. Okay, if that makes sense. So if we go back to the light, we would set the light on the floor. And she knew her first command was to come see it. She would come look at it. She'd touch it because she was interested in it. Yes, that's what we're telling. We're giving her the reinforcement. Yes, good girl. And she'd look at it. And then we slowly got her to push on it harder and harder. And when she would go to put her nose on it, I'd push down on it. And when it clicked and she went, whoa. But then when she realized, I'm like, yes, she applied more and more pressure. Once she realized she could do that, she was like, oh, this is easy. And then she's bonking this thing all the time because she knew you could. And she knew that's what I wanted. So as we slowly stuck it on the wall, and she did it, and then we moved it higher and higher until it was to the point, on about 36 inches off the ground. She could put her paws up on the wall, and then she could bonk that light and turn it on. Yes! She knew she was doing the right thing. So what I like about shaping is that she's getting that consistency, she's getting that constant reinforcement and the constant praise. Now, yes, there's some treats involved. You want to reward them for doing the right thing. Absolutely. But it's not necessarily reward driven. It's driven more by the appreciation and she wants to do for me like I want her to do, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
You got anything on that, David?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, it's like the, from the perspective of like even with human relationships, honestly, is that, hey, you start to learn to communicate, you start to learn to appreciate, and then you start to show that appreciation. And, when you do that with other human beings, even, then they start to reward you with that same appreciation.
Right.
It's a style of communication, basically.
Very much so. And And a lot of people don't necessarily think that comes into play for shaping training. We're putting these dogs in the position as a service animal that they're, in many instances, they're a ride or die, depending on the situation. So they have to trust us as much as we have to trust them. So it's that syncope that has to constantly be in play. And let's face it, I wouldn't want to do something for something like that if I didn't respect them, if I didn't like them, if I felt like I had to do it or I was going to have some consequence for that. I'm doing this for that person. This is the dog's perspective. I'm doing this for that person because I love them, I trust them, I appreciate them. It's what I want to do.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the challenge that people don't always think about when it comes to equating animals and humans. It really isn't much different. So that's why it works when it comes into shaping for service dogs. And one of the things, too, that comes into play is now that we've got these service dogs in this position, there has to be not only that amazing connection, but there has to be confidence, because at some point, there's the potential for you and your dog to be in a situation where the human may be in a potential medical challenge and the dog needs to know what to do. And the dog's got to be able to act and react appropriately. And that comes with confidence. That's that confidence under pressure.
Yep.
So to get to that point, it's steady training. We have to regulate our emotions so that the dog knows this is okay. They are going to feel comfortable doing it because they know it. And then they're going to be able to step in and react appropriately at that point in time.
Now, in your opinion and experience, why would you say shaping works better for service dogs as compared to other methods of training?
I think for me, I believe that the shaping is you're building that relationship that gives, it sounds crazy, but that dog can always back up and go, I'm not doing that. And that they always have that option. I'm not comfortable doing that. But when you have that trust between the human and the dog, there's less opportunity for that to happen. Now, yes, everybody has a bad day. Every human has a bad day. Every dog has a bad day. So once they feel connected, the requirements are always consistent, the connection is being maintained all of the time, then it's very easy for that dog to step in and go, I got you. I got your back. We're good.
I don't even know where to go from there. What's the next on the list there?
Well, how does
you really covered it very well?
How do you think then? I mean, you kind of tie it together with like how shaping supports the emotional stability for the animal.
So the one of the key things that comes into play when it comes to shaping is that we're not. So if you're asking the dog to do this, and the dog is either unsure or not willing, it isn't, okay, come around, we're going to do it again. Come around, we're going to do it again. Or you force them to do it. It's like, okay, it's all right. You're okay. Back up. Let's try it again. And it's that we are reinforcing with our voice. We are reinforcing with our emotion. We're helping them understand that you're here and I need you to get here and I'm there for you. So let's try it. And it's, instead of them doing it incorrectly and saying, no, it's okay, let's try again. And then they come back and say, yes, you did it. And they get all excited because we get all excited. That's the big difference for me. And I feel that that's what builds that connection between.
And that's a great segue into the next kind of segment here, which is precision, timing, and observation, highlighting the human side of that partnership. And you touched on it, the importance of the timing and readying the dog, not rushing the process, right? So I guess this shaping is more allowing the dog to move at its own pace, kind of like you would a student that's struggling in a class. If you can get them to work at their own pace rather than rushing the information, sometimes they get it.
Right. And sometimes they may not do it exactly like you want it for whatever reason. And if it's something that if you get 90%, 90% is absolutely adequate, okay, then we go with 90%.
Right.
You know, one of the things that was always funny about Hazel is that most service dogs will hit those pads with their paw. She didn't want to hit it with the paw. She wanted to hit it with her nose. So she booped everything. But it was fine. And that's what she opted to do. And it was okay. We still achieved the same thing.
If you were giving advice to a new service dog partnership, what would you say is one of the things that is most often missed for somebody that's new to shaping for their service partner?
I think one of the things that people don't keep in mind is, what we don't want to create is an opportunity for an incredible amount of stress. Service dogs have a big job to do. They are responsible for us in many ways as they're human. And one of the things that I always tried to make sure that we took care of was getting off time.
Mm-hmm.
So there were times when Hazel was allowed to just go be a dog. She went to doggy daycare. She went to a friend's house who lived just a block away where they could just go be silly dogs. Because if they're on 24/7, 7 days a week, that's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of, yeah. And I think people don't think, oh gosh, they need a break. So with Hazel, when her vest was on, she was working. If she was not working, her vest was off. Now that's how we did it. That was her signal that you're on.
Yep.
So when I would take her for a walk, just a collar. And it was funny because you could actually see, and the trainer that I was working with made the comment. She said, it's interesting. Your husband is her responsibility, but the relationship between the two of you is more like an owner and a dog. But the relationship between her and him he was like her responsibility. And she said, and you can see it. You could just see it in her demeanor, like you put her vest on. And she's like, okay, let's go. And you could clearly see the difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, it's funny that you should mention that, they interact differently with different people. Because like I think I brought it up last conversation, but it's directly relative to what we're doing. My mom's neighbor has a small dog. And she spazzes out every time I go over there. Blah, 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 blah. She wants to lick and kiss and hug and scratch and everything else. And around her owner.
Well, David, that's a normal reaction to you. Animals or humans, people just respond that way to you.
But her owner's like, she doesn't do that with me. I'm like, that's because I put off that energy, and that's what I require of her is that love. And what you require of her is a calm dog. And so I just think that's totally relevant to that comparison right there. That's all.
Absolutely. It's a completely different relationship. Completely different relationship. Absolutely. So, and so we have to remember that, when we're giving them their off time and, like some people would ask us, oh, you don't have Hazel with you today. We'd be out about doing things or going places because people knew who we were. It's like, no, she's having an off day today. She's having a play date. So she could go off and do that. Raising a stressed dog is bad enough, but raising a stressed service dog has its own different set of issues. So we have to remember that they need the off time. We need the off time where they're not working. We're not working all the time. And there are times when it's just, we're just chill. The three of us would just sit around, watch TV, sit out in the backyard, watch the deer, do whatever. Those are the quiet times that you need to have, which gives her the ability to recharge. It gives us the ability to re-up. to relax, and the relationship is so much more copacetic at that point.
Yeah, which kind of comes to the trust as
Mhm.
the foundation, right? I mean, and it really ties back into your relationship as compared to how the dog is trained, right? So we're talking about the type of training that you like to use most and the method that you use there. But that really does build a trust through consistency.
Mhm.
And you've talked about, and David also touched on the difference between the vest on, vest off. And you see that a lot with dogs that work in law enforcement or military environments as well. I have a friend that has a police dog. He talks about it's a completely different animal around his kids and family. I mean, dog plays with them. You just think it's a normal family dog. He
Yeah.
says, "Let's go to work." Bam,
Yeah.
that dog's right there. And so it goes back to that trust as the foundation. That the dog has to trust you no matter what its job is. If its job is just to be your pet, it still has to trust you to a certain degree. If its
Mhm.
job is to be your support system, whether through service or emotion, it still has to come back to trust. So how have you found that to work in your relationship as compared to your husband's relationship with the dog?
I could take her. So when we would do training, the yellow ribbon on a service dog's vest or collar signifies service dog in training. So we'd put the yellow ribbon on. And there were many places that I had to take her with her vest on because she needed to know that we were working. But I needed other people to also recognize that we were working, and I needed to be able to maneuver through all sorts of different things. And I know one day I took her into Target, and I wanted to be able to push carts up and down, and she
Mhm.
could maneuver with me and did really, really well. And, people are for the most part, people are understanding and they get out of the way, which is great. And then, you can go to Home Depot with a dog and they don't question it. So for me to go to Home Depot or Lowe's with her, she still acts the way she should act because she is a well-trained dog, but she's not necessarily being a service dog. But if I fell and I told her brace, she would come onto my right side and she would stand there for me to try to get up with her at that point in time. She still knows the commands. And she will do them for me like she would do them for my husband, because it's the respect and the training and the relationship that we have. My grandson could probably tell her brace and she'd walk over and go, "Oh," and she'd stand on his right hand side and he could stand up and do whatever.
It kind of reminds me of a soldier, right? It becomes second nature. Like,
Yes.
I'm a veteran, and when you're a soldier, you go through so much training and things become such second nature to you that even when you're on vacation with your family, certain words and noises and other things trigger a response in you that has just become second nature. And it's kind of
Yes.
that
Yeah.
same way with the animal.
Yeah. We are a law enforcement family, so we are on 24/7, even retired. So yes, it's a little different. For her, as she evolved as a service dog, she could sit under a table at a restaurant and just watch people go by and nothing fazed her. People could walk by and go, "Hi, doggy," and she actually would just look at them and she would not wag her tail or she wouldn't do anything because that wasn't her job. Her job was to be paying attention to my husband. Now, if we called her out and said, "Hazel, it's okay, come here, say hello," and she would sit right beside my husband and she'd kind of look at the person like, "Okay," and she would um, acknowledge them, that was fine. We actually had another service dog after Hazel, Reese. She was related because we used the same breeder. And Reese had a very similar personality. And that was a great evolution when we lost Hazel and we had to replace her very quickly. We ended up getting Reese. And then now we have Moose, who is also related to Hazel, but being a male Labrador, his maturity level is just not the same yet. Male Labradors, he just has been very slow to mature. So it's a bit of a longer process, and I hope we'll get there.
Well, that'll be a fun chat for a future episode for sure.
Yeah.
Um, let us know. Keep in touch. Let us know how the mail dog does. That'll be
Oh,
fun.
yeah. And he's too connected to me. So that's part of our challenge. He will do whatever for my husband. But he's very connected to me.
Mm.
Which I guess is common. Male humans with female or female dogs, the connection, and obviously the opposite, women with male dogs. There is there's a study and there's bonds out there that it's like that. So
So,
That'd be an
Sonya,
interest-
in the last few minutes, if there's a one core message you'd like to reinforce or one kind of final insight you'd like to give to listeners and viewers, what would that be?
I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is you have to build trust. Trust is everything. Trust for service dogs is consistency, it's safety, it's connection, it's building. I will be your ride or die. Dogs love that consistency. We as humans have to be predictable in everything that we do. In doing so, your dog knows, I know what we need to do next, and I feel safe with you. We have to respect their communication. They're always talking. If you watch the tail and you watch their eyes and the ears and all that stuff, they're communicating with you. You have to be able to understand that, respect it, see it. Positive reinforcement is also important. Reward the relationship all the time, whether it's the working relationship or the personal side. Don't set them up to fail. Give them the opportunity for a positive environment. If we don't confuse them, get them on the path, because we don't want it to be an uncertain relationship. If your dog doesn't understand something, it's not that they're being disobedient. They might be unsure. They might be confused. Be calm. Be calm. When they're not calm, they're going to come to you for that emotion. So if you're losing your mind, it's going to be harder for them. Part of shaping too is give them choice. If they're not going to exactly do it that way, little bits of choice builds a lot of relationship. Do you want to come here? Give them that. You ready to go outside? And they're like, oh yeah, we could go outside. Those little things build that relationship. I love the micro moments. The micro moments build bonding every day. So feed by hand, grooming, slow walks, just sitting together, sitting on the floor, giving up a big hug, just giving up praise like, oh my gosh, you're such a good boy, or you're such a good girl. They don't need like the whole big band, but they need those gentle daily reassurances because, they're looking to us for all that emotion. Protect them. If you have a kid coming at you that's all hands, or a pushy stranger that's like, can I pet your dog? And then you're like, well, no, I'm sorry, they're working. And then you start having this conversation because they're mad that you won't let them pet your service dog. My dogs will step behind me. I will pull them to step behind me and I will stand in front of them and say, I appreciate your interest. However, so, those types of things.
In the last minute and a half, as we close out here, why don't you just share with our listeners and us about your book and your website and resources that they can find there?
So my book is actually launching on Thursday. It's called Hazel the Wonder Service Dog. And it is the story of Hazel. When we got her, where we got her, how we got her to the point of being a service dog, and her caring for my husband, and the great relationship with the older grandson, Hank. And my website is actually called frazzledcaregiver.com. And if you go to frazzledcaregiver.com, it talks a lot about our journey with my husband who has Lewy body dementia, which predicated the need for the service dogs that we have had. And there's a lot of great information on there about dementia, caregiving, guilt, service dogs, all of that kind of stuff. And if you have questions, you can even send an email.
Awesome. Well, as always, David, take us home, buddy.
Absolutely. Yeah, guys, go to, debspets.com. It's DEBSPETS.com. We're here for health and human pet and human health and wellness, and we support a lot of nonprofits, including veteran services and stuff like that. And I know Anthony likes to close this out with a little message too.
Just remind you guys that you're not alone. We love you. We're here for you. If you need anything, please reach out to us. As you've often heard us say, we'd rather have a 3 a.m. conversation with you than to see your name on the headlines next morning. So please feel free to reach out, and we will do everything we can to find you some help.
Thank you. I'm glad that you joined us for At World of Pets podcast. We would like for you to take a look at what our sponsors have to offer, and that sponsor is debspets.com. You can access it through the QR code, or you can just go to the website. So thank you for joining us, and hope to see you again next week.